Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast lovers. Happy new 2018. I hope you have enjoyed the holiday season. I have binged listened to a lot of shows that I usually don't find the time to listen to, but I do love. A lot of listening to podcasts for me during the holiday season. This is the 76th episode of the Shipping Podcast. I will be introducing you to Head of Section Environmental Certification at DNVGL in Hamburg. Her name is Stine Mundal, and she is one of the 10 women to watch for the future. And that list was put together by the YoungShip International in Oslo for the Nordshipping event last June. So this is number 2 in a series of 10 women to watch for the future in the maritime industry. 10 women from that list, beneath the age of 40. The first one that I interviewed is Therese Hjelbrink, Business and Interaction Manager at Stine Mundal. You can listen to her in episode number 72. But this is Stine Mundal. I met her at the Vista International AGM and conference in Rotterdam on October the 4th, 2017. And this is our chat. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Stine Mundal. Norwegian by origin, naval architect by profession, and working in the Ship Classification Society, DNVGL, from our maritime head offices in Hamburg in Germany.
And what is your background?
Well, as a kid growing up, I was very interested, or I guess I also managed math and physics courses. Growing up with a father, being an engineer, I guess I was exposed to the opportunity that it was possible to be an engineer, and also always knew that this was a profession with a lot of opportunities. Later, I didn't have any family ties to the shipping industry, but my father was a civil engineer, so I knew I did not want to be a civil engineer, at least. But I think maybe also the summers close to the water on the islands in southern Norway, liking the sea. I'm an Aquarius. I like to be in the water and swim as well. And when I was studying the brochure for the technical university in Trondheim in Norway, I guess I chose the university before my topic. The photos were nice. They were playing with boats in water, and they were smiling. And I did some pre-research. Actually, I went with my cousin up to Trondheim, actually, where we were still in high school, and made appointments with these different institutions for the different topics up there. She ended up going on medicine there, but we visited some of these professors and asking them what the different subjects were about, and I started to get fascinated by this maritime thing. They had these big ocean basins and towing tanks, and it was very hands-on. It was not this small things you couldn't really grasp. And it was a mix with water. So I decided to go to study naval architecture at the Marine Technology in Trondheim. I never regretted that for a single day. I think I'm a person also who start with something and it catches my interest. And then I get very engaged and involved in it, and then it becomes even more fun. And it was like this for naval architecture for me as well, and started to develop the interest for ships and the water. And at my university, you either start, and in Norway, especially when you do the marine technology studies, you either go into the oil and gas industry or you go into shipping. And I think I quite early figured out that the ships were more for me. There were more money in the oil at that time. I don't know about now. But I didn't really felt the attraction towards the oil and gas industry at that time, at least. So ships it was.
And what was your first, who was your first employer?
Since I graduated, I've been employed by DNVGL the whole time. It's 8 years since I graduated now. I did have some summer internships in my study times. I had one summer for a competitor classification society, actually, in Oslo as well. And also for a Norwegian ship owner, where I also had opportunity to sail with LNG gas vessels between Trinidad and Boston, doing some testing on board for fuel and consumption and optimization of the vessel. But when I was starting to apply for jobs, it was just before the financial crisis hit. So it was in these times where the students before could pick and choose from jobs, really. So I guess it's also the attitude among the students that what we want to do, not really what is more like now, what are the few possibilities out there. And I got a job as a technical trainee in DNV at that time. I really wanted a trainee position. It sounded really cool. I applied for different others as well, because I was always attracted also by the international opportunities, and this was an international trainee position where I knew I would have to travel around the world for 2 years. And I was very lucky to get this job. I think for me it was the best way to start my career, also as a fresh graduate, but also in shipping. I had opportunity in my 2 first years to really start in the office looking at the drawings for how the shipyard and equipment manufacturers were planning to build the ships. And as a class society, looking for the safety of the vessel and doing the approval. And then later, I had the opportunity to be 6 months in France, working in the shipyard, building a cruise ship. So then that's kind of the next step for the life of the vessel. And then you had to match the drawings with what they were actually building, and we had to sign off on that. And then later, I had the opportunity to move to Singapore, and I worked as what we call a fleet in service surveyor, where you put on your boiler suit every day and follow up the ships of the lifetime. So maybe it's one docking where they do a lot of repairs and you have to climb all the tanks to see how much rust it is, or they're dismantling the whole engine in the engine room with all the oil and grease that brings. And if you have the big ships, a 2-stroke engine, they're taking out the cylinder, you can actually walk into the engine and see everything in real life. So coming from quite theoretical studies and building up my then ship knowledge more practical stepwise, for me it was a fantastic way of really stepping into shipping and understand the ships and meet the people working there, if that's in the shipyard or the crew on board in Singapore. That's how I started.
Sounds great. How were you received being a young woman?
I think from my personal experience, it hasn't been so much about being a woman as maybe some comments somewhere, especially I think in Scandinavia we have more women doing engineering studies. I also saw that when I was studying. I see it now even more. In our office in Norway, I wouldn't say it's most of it, but among the younger generation, it's more women really coming in now. I believe now that have also over the years been more international exposed. Of course, I'm realizing that there's not so many female engineers around outside of Scandinavia. Of course, there are some. So for me, I think in many situations, it's been more about being the young, not being the female. Or if that is first time I was working in the shipyard in France, of course, obviously, I didn't really know a lot about inspecting ships, but I had to learn. And after the first week, I was testing fire doors. There's a lot of fire safety on cruise vessels. So I was testing fire doors. And I've been doing that for 1 week with one of the really experienced project managers we had at site. But then after 1 week of testing some 100 fire doors, I was allowed to go alone and testing them. But then the people from the shipyard who needed our acceptance and they had to tick off that this door was okay, they double-checked all the doors after me. But then when they saw eventually that the comments I gave were okay, then I saw they stopped double-checking after me. But I think it was more from inexperience than being a woman. In Singapore, I think they didn't really understand my age. I was going, of course, on training with more experienced older surveyors. First of all, of course, the crew, they were really asking me, are you really going into that double bottom? You don't have to. Of course, it's my job. Of course, it's fun. I want to go down. But then they were standing holding a cold bottle of water for me coming up. My male colleagues were so jealous because they never got this service on board. So that was great, you know. You have to take the advantages you get. But it was more like they thought I was really young and they didn't really understand my background, if I was really engineer from profession, what experience I had and what I really knew.
So what do you do today? What is your position today?
Today I'm a line manager and I'm a head of section for a section in a company called Environmental Certification. I've been that for the last 3 years. It's a part of what we call the approval center in the ship classification part of DNVGL. It's in Hamburg, so I relocated to Hamburg 3 years ago, also from Norway. And we are responsible, my team, for all that is emissions to air from ships. So if that is from the engine or the complete engine system, including exhaust gas cleaning, and also what is called the energy efficiency design of the vessel. So it's more related to CO2 emissions. And it's all governed by the MARPOL, Annex 6, so Maritime Pollution Prevention, and Annex 6 is everything that is emissions to air. So these are the international regulations from IMO about environmental matters.
So how big is your team?
My team is currently, it's changing all the time, but currently we are approximately 20 people. It's gone a bit up and down since I started. So we are a good mix of support staff and technical experts and engineers. We have the global responsibility for this discipline in our company. So of course we collaborate a lot with different local stations we have around in the world. DNVGL, we have, almost 300 offices in 100 different countries. So wherever there are a connection to a port or some customers, we are. And of course, we have a lot of local experts and surveyors following up our customers. If that is an engine maker or a ship owner or somewhere a ship might visit a port, we are there. So we are kind of making the governing documents and instructions and having support, issuing the certificates, because that's what also we do in DNVGL. We issue a lot of certificates in the end as a basis for the technical evaluation that we are doing.
I have a question I've been longing to put to you. How do you see the future of shipping in general?
I think it's a time of changes now. Everyone is talking about digital transformation. We're of course talking about that internally in our company as well. We talk about will be the role of class in the future. We believe there's a place for us, but it might change. There still will be safety aspects that needs a third-party evaluation, so that everyone feels that it's an independent party taking care of safety, regardless what that is. But if we are looking at more or less crew on board the vessels, definitely more advanced systems on board the vessels, regardless how automated or unmanned or how the connectivity is towards shore or whatever. So being more into how these very advanced systems on board will be handled from a safety point of view. If that is the technical safety or the software, how the different components on board are integrated with each other, the dependency and reliability and also redundancy requirements for this. But I guess also a big topic these days, cybersecurity around all this as well.
Yeah, and I also think there's so many things changing at the same time. So we are in a paradigm. I don't think we can see it yet, how big it is. Because it's a change of generation. It's the digitalization. It's the change of doing things. And everyone is re-evaluating their part in the value chain, or however you want to express that.
Yeah, definitely. And even though I guess we all know shipping is it's a very traditional business, so we have to take all that with us as well. But then how open are we for embracing thinking differently, doing things differently? Do we actually believe it will affect us? I guess that's a very interesting question. And of course it will, but to what extent and how fast? And what is the right thing to do to follow this? This is a very big topic in our organization.
And I also think that the initial thoughts have landed in a way that people now accept that there will be a change. At least that is what I see in the forerunners maybe, but now people are starting to think about how can we make this our advantage? How can we, who works in the industry, now become leaders in new areas and of new things and so on? I know that there are people still who doesn't want to change and who have, well, I'm not sure if they are resisting, but I can see the change in the discussion going on.
And I guess it's also a topic that needs maturity.
Of course.
It's about discussing it more. Of course, it becomes more real. And if you see it takes part in more of the daily conversation, topics on conference, discussed internally in different companies, part of the thoughts going into decision process, how to proceed forward. It's a maturity topic, I guess, as many other change topics are.
I agree. You are one of the 10 women to watch for the future.
Apparently I am.
What do you think about that?
Of course, it's a very great initiative, and I'm extremely honored to be, first of all, nominated, but also to be one of the chosen one for the list. I did hear from the jury that it was a lot of good candidates that were nominated in a difficult decision process. And also the event we had during NordShipping in Oslo, where all the ladies on the list were present. It was a great evening. Meeting all of them. I didn't know many of them from before at all.
No, I think it's such a great initiative and it's such a great thing. And I am going to interview all of you because I want to hear your view of the future. I think it's also a great initiative for how the shipping industry could become more visible to do these kind of initiatives.
Yeah.
We are often looked upon as the hidden industry.
Yeah, and I think that every time we're meeting people in the industry, different settings, social setting, if that is a conference, if it's among other women or just a good mix, so many nice people and so many friendly people. And my impression at least, not so stiff, not always so super formal. It's that as well, but everything has its time and a different purpose. But it's quite open, welcoming, warm.
What are you talking about now? Vista or
no shipping?
Yeah, shipping in general.
What I've exposed, I'm sure I haven't been exposed to everything, but I guess it's also
one of my soapboxes is that we need to talk to other people outside the industry.
Yeah, but that's what you mentioned about the image.
Yeah.
So is the image really reflecting the reality?
No.
Maybe sometimes, and I guess stereotypes come from some things, but it doesn't mean that that is everything to it.
No. But what could we do to become more, to show more of that warm, nice and open feeling that you're talking about towards others, so that they don't see us in this old, stiff, elderly men?
And I guess an initiative like the 10 Women to Watch to show that young women also can get super cool positions in our industry and are not only discriminated, if that is a vision or superstition that someone is having. Younger organization, we have YoungShip is quite active, also becoming very big internationally, showing to young people that shipping can be a cool industry to work in, working towards universities or maybe even go further than that in high schools in different countries. That is making more diverse students choose engineering, and in that sense also shipping. But of course shipping is not only engineering, and from the female point of view I see that there's a lot of lawyers and other support functions, so there should be more female engineers. I think we have a lot to contribute with.
Yeah, I think you're a great role model. I mean, you should visit the schools and they will definitely want to know more about shipping and what it's like.
And I have done that over the years since I started working for DNVGL. There's a lot of, especially when I was working in Norway, we had a lot of great collaborations with even upper secondary school, not only high school, building electrical cars where all the equipment was sponsored by our company. We had schools visiting us, giving presentation. If there have also been many times up in the universities, giving company presentation, talking to the students. So we are definitely also doing that from our company. So that's something all companies should do. And if that is, and we also have the policy in our company to be visible, even though it's difficult times. If we are maybe not only recruiting, but then you can reach out to potential candidates for recruitment later because we're being visible. But it's also, of course, highlighting that our business is here, the shipping industry, we are here. And this is something maybe more people should consider if they don't know about it already. But this is something, I guess, not just a few persons or a few organizations should do, but this is where everyone should contribute to.
I agree.
So not just keeping to ourselves, but
I always ask people, when did you speak to someone about shipping who wasn't in the shipping industry the last time? When did you do that? Because I have friends who are not in shipping and they don't understand. So I try and talk about the good and positive sides and see what I do. I travel, I meet a lot of interesting people.
And I guess one of the really, really thing that I love about shipping as well is the international exposure. As I mentioned, I've been living and also I did partly studying abroad as well as an exchange to Hawaii, actually, studying waves. It's very relevant when you're a naval architect and need to know how strong the wave forces are on an offshore ship structure or whatever. So it was not only surfing the waves, although that was also part of it. But the more and more I've been internationally exposed and also then meeting people from all over the world, I feel like it enriches me as a personal individual, opening your eyes and broadens your horizon, not only from the professional point of view, but also from the personal point of view. And also in our company, it's so many different nationalities working, also in our European offices, not only in other countries. And I really like the international working space, the collaboration. Of course, that the different cultural backgrounds brings a lot of diversity to the things you want to do, the teams you're working in, even though we also have improvement areas as a company there as well. But this really motivates me, energizes me, makes it interesting. And I think it's, okay, I've only been working in shipping, but I think it's also special and unique for shipping.
Did you have a role model growing up, or do you have it now, or is it?
I don't think I've had anyone in particular, but it's maybe more observing certain people accomplishing something with confidence, without fear, just doing it. Looked so cool. I want to do that. I think I'm a more, not one person, but like a pick and choose. So also when I was working as a surveyor in Singapore, I was trying to go out with all the different surveyors in the station. It's a big station. Singapore is a busy shipping hub. And not copying one surveyor that was the best, but trying to take a little bit from everyone. To not copy only one surveyor who was really good, but while remaining myself, pick and choose from the others and see how I could use what they were good at in improving my different skills and attitudes and see where I want to go and what kind of person or surveyor I wanted to be. What worked, what didn't work. Yeah, pick and choose.
Who would you be interested in listening to in the shipping podcast? Who do you think I should meet the next time?
Good question. I think there's a lot of interesting things in Asia. We have Asia is maybe almost not so visible in the settings here in Europe. So some successful people who have done something differently in Asia, maybe. Huh?
I will have to see what I can find then.
You were asking.
Yeah, you. If you want to name a name, fine. Yeah. If you don't want to, it's okay. Thank you for taking the time, Stine. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Yeah. And best luck for the future.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me for speaking on the shipping podcast. It's really nice talking to you, Lena.
Thank you, Stine, for being such a great role model for young people to become naval architects. I think this industry needs more people like you. Speaking of that list of 10 women to watch for the future, I'm a bit disappointed that there was no company that I asked that wanted to sponsor or support the series of 10 women to watch for the future interviews. But I'm not surprised. Supporting a podcast, and especially supporting a series of 10 women, that's a new thing to our industry. But that will not stop me. We've got 8 to go. I promise you, you will hear some interesting stuff later on in the shipping podcast. I can really see that podcasting is starting to break through also in the maritime industry. I get a lot of requests nowadays from companies who wants to start their own or who wants me to help them set up the system for making podcasts. And I can also see that they want to work with me in different ways. I think it's great. I think that podcasting and audio, shipping was made for podcasting. Everything we do in shipping is storytelling. We can tell a story about so many interesting things. And that is so suitable for audio. To get into the ears and heads and hearts of people. That is how we can spread the word about our maritime industry and how we can get people more interested. I welcome everyone that wants to start a podcast or want to discuss podcasts with me. I've learned so many things about the podcasting industry, and to be an independent podcaster compared to being a big media house producing this have taught me so much. I hope you enjoy this episode. You should know that the episodes are downloaded in more than 166 countries. It's so amazing. It's more than 5,000 people listening to this. It gives me a bit of a nervous breakdown from time to time. But I have to prepare for the next episode. So I leave you now. Don't forget to send me some feedback. I love feedback. Otherwise, I think I'm only speaking out into a black hole. So, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.